It's on.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Tonight's movie is MASH, 1970s, a 1970 drama comedy, and I've seen it listed on the internet as a horror comedy. It was directed by Robert Altman, written by Ring Lardner Jr. And does that ring a bell with anybody? The writer? I'm going to talk
Ring
about
Lardner.
Ring Lardner, yeah. He was
Yeah.
part of the Hollywood 10, and Fox Pictures gave him the opportunity to. The whole boycott kind of died out. But anyway, I'm going to talk about that just briefly. It's based on a book, a 1968 novel by Richard Hooker called MASH, without the asterisks in it, a novel about three doctors. The musical score was written by Johnny Mandel, who also wrote the music for the theme song. Suicide is Painless. However, Altman's son, Mike, who was around 14 at the time, wrote the lyrics. The producer was
really?
The producer was Ingo Preminger, brother of the famous producer Otto Preminger. And so Ingo played a very big role in making sure this whole thing came to pass. But you'd have to watch the DVD commentary really to find out about him. But he's an interesting guy, he really is. The film focuses on a mobile army surgical hospital, a MASH, during the Korean War, and the people who run it. It stars Donald Sutherland, Tom Skerritt, Elliott Gould, Sally Kellerman, Robert Duvall, René Auberjonois, French guy, Garry Burghoff, Roger Bowen, Michael Murphy, and in his feature film debut, Hollywood legend and pro football defensive back, Fred the Hammer Williamson. MASH is one of the biggest films of the early 1970s for 20th Century Fox, and it's now considered a classic. Won the Palme d'Or at the 1970 Cannes Film Festival, and it got 5 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, but it won for Best Adapted Screenplay for Ring Lardner, which was kind of a nice thing since he had been struggling ever since 1947 when the House Un-American Activities Committee was going after. The Best Picture winner in 1971 was Patton, and other nominees included 5 Easy Pieces and Love Story. Patton was also produced by 20th Century Fox, and there was another movie, Tora Tora Tora, and Altman said that all he had to do was come in under budget because he had a $3 million budget, and these other things were big giant blockbusters they were all worried about. So as long as he didn't get any attention, he thought he could slip everything through. Because they had already had 2 war movies that they were worried about. It was the 3rd highest grossing film in 1970, behind Love Story and Airport. Hey, Michael.
Hi, guys.
Glad to have you aboard. We just went ahead and rolled because.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for a laptop update. Took a while.
Oh, there you go. The highest grossing film that was released in 1970, behind Love Story and Airport. It ultimately earned $81.6 million worldwide on a budget of $3 million. And in today's money, that would mean it cost around $24 million and it grossed around $637 million. So it was a huge success for 20th century. It really put them on the map for doing big, giant things, although that's not what he intended to do. He was trying to stay under the radar, so to speak. A few things. New York critic Pauline Kael wrote of the film, "I don't know when I've had such a good time in a movie. Many of the best recent American movies leave you feeling there's nothing to do but get stoned and die, and that's your fate as an American. This movie heals a breach." Film critic Roger Ebert wrote, "Most comedies want us to laugh at things that aren't really funny. In this one, we laugh precisely because they're not funny. We laugh that we may not cry." MASH also became the first major Hollywood movie to use the word fuck on the silver screen, which you will hear in a close-up during the football game. Does anybody remember hearing that?
Yeah, I do.
I do.
The guy that played Painless, the dentist, was on the line with who's the other giant? I can't think of his name right now, but one of the other football players. And Altman had instructed him to say something that will really piss him off. And we're going to do a close-up on you. And so he said, I'm going to knock your fucking head off. That's what he said. And then it was Ben Davidson. Ben Davidson hit him with a forearm and toppled him all the way like 8 yards back. And the guy that played Painless on the commentary said, my ears still ring from that. So, but I want to mention Ring Lardner for a bit. Lardner, Dalton Trumbo, and others were among a group of directors, writers, producers, actors, and musicians who became known as the Hollywood 10. They all refused to appear before the House Un-American Activities Committee that was investigating communist influences in the entertainment industry. They were all convicted of contempt of Congress, and they were sentenced to a year in jail and fined $1,000 each. And that was the equivalent of $13,645 in today's money. Most served between 6 and 12 months. Some didn't serve any time because they turned in more people, and they're not very well liked in the entertainment industry. But Lardner took his penalties, and he and 20th Century Fox gave him writing jobs over the years. He had a connection with the Preminger brothers, and they liked him, and they just thought the whole thing was crazy. And they went to him with this job to do MASH, and so he did. He adapted the novel, and that's exactly what he did. Now, a number of sources over the years have said that Lardner was upset about Altman taking liberties with the text, and that he was mad that he didn't use any of his original stuff. Lardner, in his autobiography, said that was just not true. He said, for all of Bob's improvisations and interpolations, the basic structure is one that was I laid out in the script, and each scene has a beginning and a middle and an end that I gave it. So I just thought we would get that all the way if anybody's heard much about that. And then who wants to go first and start talking about what you thought about the movie and answer the 2 questions that I posed when they picked it, which is like Mattson did with Blazing Saddles. Could this movie be made today? And then the second question is satire dead? Anybody want to go?
I'm going.
1 down, 9 to go.
My answers are no and no.
Oh,
I think
really?
it could be made today, sure.
I mean, it was a TV show for
No,
15
no,
years.
Why? Why do you think so, Chris?
well, because of the misogyny in it and the homophobia in it, in such gritty surgical scenes, the bullying, the thinly veiled critique. It was actually the Vietnam War, not the Korean War, that they were covering up, and the racist comments like spear chucker. It could be made, but it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, Ring Lardner is
It-
not going to write it.
No, it'd be very boring. It's
Yeah.
what I think. And then is satire dead? No. But I think
No.
it might be dying because there's too many spineless, feel-good people in the world now that, oh gosh, everybody gets a trophy and, you know, they can't laugh at themselves or circumstances. And so satire's still around, but I don't know, it might be dying.
The reason
Go
I think
ahead.
it could be made today is because it was made in an era when we were divided. I mean, there was extreme feelings on both sides of the Vietnam War. You know, my parents, and you know, it was Washington is right, and you just didn't question authority. And then there was a new generation that questioned authority, and there was this huge generation gap and polarization. And we live in a world now where there's polarization, and I think the best thing we could do is to make light of it and be poking fun at it and our self-seriousness. I think the ground is very fertile for a movie like this that would exploit the polarization. But so I think we desperately need something like this. And even if it was not couched in current events, but like they used the Korean War as a set piece for the Vietnam War. If you could find, I mean, you could go back to the Civil War, you could go back to some other era we were divided and just ridicule it. I think it would be a huge release and a huge success. I think we desperately need it. I just wish there was somebody as clever as Robert Altman or this writer to pull it off, or a studio brave enough to do it. But I think we're desperate for something like that, and I think it would be a huge box office smash.
Well,
One of
you
the
know,
things, one of the
Okay.
things that before we get off on this, one of the things I admired about Altman that I didn't recognize until this movie, Altman always has this audio crosstalk where there's multiple conversations.
Mhm.
Until I went back and watched MASH, I never realized that in this movie, not only are people talking over each other, Radar is talking
Mhm.
out in front of everybody,
yeah,
Yeah,
which is brilliant.
yeah, he is.
Yeah,
yeah,
closed captioning was valuable.
yes.
Yeah. I watched it with closed cap. You're right, Matson. It made all the difference in the world.
Yeah,
I missed half of what
you
I'd
couldn't
seen
keep
before.
up with the different conversations.
Right. Right.
Just so you know, the studio was a little worried about making the comparison to Vietnam. And although Lardner and Altman were on that, and they knew that that's what they wanted to do, the studio made them put some Chiron on at the very beginning. A couple of quotes from MacArthur, "I will go to Korea," and some things like that. Just to let everybody know, this is Korea here, because Vietnam War,
right.
Yeah.
they were very worried about that.
I don't think they camouflaged it very well. I think it was
I
Vietnam
know.
War movie.
Anybody else?
I agree with Gary. I think that, oh, wait, yeah. I'm not on mute. I agree with Gary that that this would fly now, and I think context is everything. So I think couched in the proper context today, this could really be a successful thing. Just a word about the surgical stuff that was going on. I think that was more Korean War level of vascular surgery and what they were diving into, and their level of a sterile technique or lack thereof. Just the way they conducted things in that tent was probably much more accurate for Korea than it was for Vietnam, because I think things had come along quite a bit by that time, and they were doing stuff that they couldn't do in Korea. So that part, I think, was accurate and kind of placed us in that part of history.
You think the gallows humor would have been any different in either war?
No, not really, because I think that's a comment that occurs today in the operating room in kind of a gentler way. I'm never in a bloodbath like that, but there is snappy banter that occurs in the operating room all the time.
Do you know, Jeff, did Vietnam have MASH units? Did they have mobile army surgical hospitals?
I'm sure they had something equivalent to that. I can't tell you
Yeah,
exactly.
they did. My dad,
some sort
my
of
dad
forward
worked in one.
operating
okay.
theater.
There you go. Jeff, tell us that. Jeff with a G. Tell us that again.
Yeah, my dad, he was in the Red Cross, but he worked in a MASH unit in Vietnam.
So there you go. I didn't know the answer to that one.
Gary, I think you're right in this, in that, yeah, we do need to lighten up. You know how Mel Brooks was able to lighten things up about a horrible, Hitler and stuff. And I agree, if we could lighten things up. But this movie was so misogynistic, and most of the jokes, or a lot of the jokes, are anti-woman. There's a lot of anti-government, and I get that's what it was, but it's the anti-women jokes. And here's what I found so interesting for me personally. I had real mixed feelings about this. When I saw it in 1970, I remember laughing my head off. Now, watching it now, I'm kind of cringing, knowing that I was laughing at it in 1970, that where was my head at? Now, I was anti-war, but when I was seeing those scenes where, the whole group gets in front of the shower for Sally Kellerman and, just embarrasses her and puts her down and all that. I was cringing. It was like, oh, come on. But at the time, so, hopefully I don't know, matured or whatever the word is, but something, has really changed. So I would say that the movie making fun of certain things to make it light is important, but not doing it that way. So it would have to be a completely different kind of I mean, I love satire and I love repartee and I love people making fun of themselves, but those kind of jokes that really take somebody and just humiliate and embarrass them bothers me.
Well,
Like,
but if you think, I think she was a substitute for authority.
And you wanted to put
She
her,
happened,
and
she happened to be a woman, and they but I think you could take the same self-fulfilled man and embarrass him and accomplish the same thing today. So
right.
maybe the movie, maybe the effect of the movie would have been different, but the players they used to make the point would have been different.
Well, they kind of did with Frank Burns.
Yeah, they kind of
Well,
did that.
They kind of.
They made him a wacko, yeah. Straitjacket ends up.
That's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
Don, I kind of agree with you in watching this. I felt it was more mean-spirited than Blazing Saddles. And
yes,
I don't know if that's so or if it's just written in a different way. It's the same audience.
Yeah.
2 years apart or 4 years apart. I just think it was Mel Brooks had a little bit different take on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, the spear chucker stuff rolled off the tongue.
Yeah.
Too easily. And
all the women jokes.
If it's Korea and you said it in the proper time and place, it's not awkward.
And he even explained that to somebody. Somebody said, you let him call you spear chucker? And he goes, yeah, I used to throw the javelin. They threw that in there.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if this will change your minds, but in the actual filming, Sally Kellerman only wanted to have just the bare minimum crew out there, which Altman did. What we see as everybody in camp there, she was not faced with everybody in camp. But the first time that they did it, she knew where the camera was, and so she kind of looks towards the camera and she drops down much quicker than he expected. And so he said, we need to do another take. And they said, okay. So they racked everything and they set it up again. And he and Larry Burghoff dropped their drawers and stood there. And then they pulled the thing. And then she went, whoa. And then she had this look on her face. And then she dropped. And they said, perfect, cut it. So
I like that. But they didn't film that. No.
Yeah, no.
That's a dedicated director.
Yeah.
Which one did they use?
Well, they used her expression. They used the one of the guys that dropped their drawers, and that was actually Larry Burghoff's or Garry Burghoff's idea.
Gary.
He said, he goes, Mr. Altman, I really think if one or both of us were to be naked when she does that might take a little sting out.
Might make her feel better.
Yeah. And he said, oh, sounds great. Let's do it. So, or whatever.
That's funny.
I think that some of this, the sort of the edge on this had to do with having Donald Sutherland and Elliott Gould in their positions, because they're just like rapier wits and can be really cutting about things. I think that, no pun intended in this movie, but I think that their presence in there was a little sharper than some of the people in Blazing Saddles. They were more used to kind of a softer comedy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. And the way they, both of them are excellent actors, and they know how to deliver a line that is so, was it Roger Ebert or somebody said that they read the script and they thought it was boring, And I think it was Roger Ebert. He said he read the script before seeing the movie and he thought it was just going to be terribly boring. And it was the two of them that really just brought it to life and were able to take those lines and really, make them sing. So it was really such an interesting movie, but I was just so amazed at my own change in the way I saw it. And when that scene, when Sally Kellerman is naked, I was watching the group that was there, and there were 4 women there, and 2 of the women are laughing, and 2 of the women are a little bit, they're not laughing. And I thought that was interesting too, is that you've got women there that are kind of like I did in 1970, were laughing along this whole thing without, I guess, feeling what maybe Sally was feeling. And even though I know she was a symbol, she's still a woman that was just being humiliated in front of the entire
And at the end of the scene, the women rush to her rescue.
Right, finally, yes. But and during the scene, 2 of them are laughing and 2 of them are not, and then they rush. Yeah, I know.
There was Altman led a lot of people. It wasn't just Altman, and it wasn't just Gould and Sutherland. He encouraged everybody to ad lib. His successful movies are all like
improv
ensemble movies. And that's what he was trying to do, is to make an ensemble movie out of it.
Yeah.
And one example is when Sally Kellerman goes into the colonel's office, he's in bed with a woman, and she says, "This is not a hospital. This is an insane asylum." Or she says something like
I know.
that. And then Father Mulcahy somehow is nearby, and she says, "I just can't understand why a person like you could reach this level of competence in the United States Army." And Father Mulcahy, the guy that played that, had this line that he came up with.
Do me a favor.
He was drafted.
Yeah.
That's how
they were drafted. Right.
So
What
I
about,
think it's fun that everybody got a chance to throw stuff into it.
what about the treatment of the other woman? She was kind of humiliated too. She was
Lieutenant
when they
Dish.
first came in, they would do that, and they would talk to her, kind of.
Oh, you mean
Dish.
what's her name? Janice
LaPlante. Yeah.
Joanne
Flug.
Yeah.
Joanne
But I
Flug,
mean,
yeah.
and then it leads up to the photos that Mike and Jeff have behind them, where she has sex with the guy, and so he treats that as she's flying off. She smiles. I mean, I think that was done to try to, treat the whole way they treated her. Like, oh well, she liked it, and I thought that was a little strange too, the way they handled it. But at least she smiled.
I would have to go back and look at. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, she was in there picking up the sheet and looking in there. She got pretty interested at that point. And then the way they couched her as she was leaving, she was going away the next day, and Hawkeye kind of cajoled her because she was more interested in Hawkeye, but it's like, this is an act of mercy. This guy is losing his self-confidence and everything, and you can restore this for him.
You're a nurse.
And then she was in the helicopter and kind of looking glum, and then she got that sort of sweet smile on her face as she was flying off, and I thought that was tastefully done. I mean, there's definitely sex in this movie in quite a lot of different ways.
One of the things I didn't quite get, initially it was Tom Skerritt and Donald Sutherland, and I thought they had a nice repartee. But as soon as Elliott comes into the picture, Tom Skerritt gets, I don't know if he has any more lines after that. It was just kind of, and I really liked Tom Skerritt.
Just when he's sleeping with hot lips.
And that's
Right.
why did that? I don't even get that. That did not even make sense to me. How did that, at least maybe I missed something, but I did not see that coming at all. I know, she was with Frank Burns but to be with the guys that she thought were incompetent and terrible, and how did she get to that? And then she ends up being this, from this competent head of the nurses to this flake that goes, I didn't, she didn't even know football. That there was that little, I don't know what that was about. I don't know.
So she went to the bad boy side.
Yeah, but why?
I think that
All right.
represented a softening of her. She was strictly military when she came in, and she began to understand the humanity that was involved in that group of people. They were out of control to some degree, but they were very human. They would take care of children. They would take care of members of the opposite forces. They would take care of people because they were people. And she began to understand, I think, that that's what was going on. And so her whole atmosphere changed. And so getting together with Tom Skerritt, she didn't have Lieutenant Burns anymore. She was there kind of lonely probably. And she knew he was a good surgeon and not a bad guy. So I kind of got that.
That's an interesting point.
Jeff just filled in all the gaps because I'm going to default to my, arc conversation. This is a character who was uptight and authoritarian. And at the end of the movie, she is cheering, literally on the sidelines cheering, but there's no scene anywhere in there. Jeff had to fill in the gaps. He just did. He filled in the gaps. She was authoritarian. She had her tryst with Burns. She's seen with Skerritt, and she ends up as a cheerleader. So there is a wholesale personality change, but we have to imagine it. There's no conversation. There's no scene. There is no example of her softening and seeing the humanity in the insanity around her. We have to assign that to her because it doesn't exist on the screen. It only exists in Jeff's head or our heads. It doesn't mean that it didn't occur.
No, that actually is a good point. It's just that I think that arc is whoa. I mean, that's an arc that goes, whoa.
Maybe her attitude changed when she walked in the tent and the colonel said, "Well, goddamn, Hot Lips, turn in your resignation."
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I love Colonel Blake.
He was great.
Yeah.
Well, she kind of took up with Duke when Hawkeye and Trapper went to Japan to play golf, and they come back and she's with Duke then all of a sudden. So there must have been a little something going on there before they left.
Well, there was room in the tent,
But we don't see it. We just have to imagine it.
Well, you see, and then he is embarrassed as hell. He skirts away like a mouse, and that I think that's a little bit of getting even for some of the things that they had done to her too. It's a case where he was embarrassed by his friends.
What do you guys think about Bud Cort's character? That was kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory.
He's the guy. He was the guy. He was Harold and Maude, but he was like a mousy guy. And Frank Burns, I think, was it Frank Burns just ridiculed him and made him feel like shit?
Yes.
Yeah, he said you killed the guy. And
And he just felt so. Yes.
I thought he was a conscientious objector, just working the surgical tent.
Good point. Yeah. It was very sensitive, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Hawkeye took up for him, and they kind of rescued him, and he became part of the gang. I thought that was an interesting little piece of the plot too.
Yeah,
he had he had the only, for me, laugh out loud line in the whole movie. I saw it 50 years ago, thought it was funny, all that sort of stuff. But at the tail end of the Last Supper scene, where he's going by the dentist's coffin, he says, "You're throwing away your whole education." How many times did you hear that 50 years ago?
The line I liked was somebody said, "I'll always remember you just like this." I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Sanders, I would have to go back and look at Nashville and some of the other Altman movies, but there really is, Jeff mentioned the plot. There really is no plot. It's
Well,
just a series of
there is,
introduction.
There is, and let me explain what happened. Altman had to show some, not a rough cut, but a cut of sorts to his people at the 20th Century Fox, and they said, "There's no plot." And he goes, "Well, we can fix that, I think." And what they did was they used the speaker on the pole. They went back out and shot every one of those shots, and they used actual Army things that would be said at a MASH unit. Be sure and show up for short on inspection at 4 o'clock, and all this kind of stuff. And so that became a transitional thing between all of these disparate parts that wound it together. And so then when he played a version of that to him, they went, "Oh, well, okay, that's great."
Well, okay, so they were bridges to various episodes. I don't think that there was much of a plot either.
Yeah,
More like little vignettes.
That's what I said. I'd like to go back and look at Nashville and some of the others. This movie, the first half of the movie is being introduced to different characters. You meet Hawkeye, you meet Elliott Gould, you meet Kellerman, but that's all it is a series of introductions and how they're thrown together. But there's no resolution of anything. Then they just all, they all go away, beginning with Frank Burns, then one by one, they all disappear. But
I think that's very much what happens in a war. I mean, somebody shows up, the next guy shows up, somebody leaves. I mean, it's always building. We got to see the group of them together for a little while, but then they left too.
Yeah.
My favorite scene in the movie is, to me, the thing that saves the thing is when Sutherland is taking the young man for his physical, and the photographer says, "Hey, you want to say hi to your mom?" And he says, "My mom has passed away." These are people that they've built up such an armor to be resistant to violence and bloodshed, and they've got gallows humor just to show that they have no heart, that nothing can get to them. And he tears up and says, "But I would like to say hi to my dad." To me, that saves the movie. It shows that the movie has heart and not just satire and cynicism.
By the way, that was also an ad lib. He was supposed to say, "Hi, Mom." And at the last minute, he just thought this will work better. And it did.
That to me, that was such more powerful, where I've already lost my mom. I know my dad is home alone. I'm not there. I'd like to say hello to him. I thought that was the most powerful line in the whole movie.
And then Sutherland also said that his mom and dad went to the movie theater to see it, and they knew that he had mentioned one of them in it, but they didn't know which one, and his mom was kind of pissed that he didn't say hi to her. And his dad was thrilled. "Boy, that was great. I love that scene." I don't know how long it took you to do that one, but that was well worth it. So,
sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did anyone notice the mile marker signs that they had up? One said Lebanon, Missouri.
Lebanon,
yes.
Lebanon.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I didn't mention this in the beginning, but Altman was born in Kansas City, and he spent some time in Kansas City and learned his film work at Calvin Production Company, which I think is still there to this day. I don't know if it's probably not, but he did things like, Army instructional videos on how to brush your teeth and how to shave, and he did all kinds of crazy things. And he put together a movie where people talked on top of each other. That was astronauts, and it was called Countdown. And it was a 1 hour thing. He went out to Hollywood and started showing it at people's parties. That's how you got into the business back then. And he went to Alfred Hitchcock's house, and Hitchcock liked it and said, "Can you show up at work every day sober? That's the thing I cannot find in this town." And he said, "You bet." And so that's how I got started. He shot all kinds of TV for a long time before he ever broke into Hollywood. This was really his first break into Hollywood. He went out there in like the 50s to get started.
Do you know if Altman thought he was making an anti-war movie, or
Oh yeah.
what was his intention? It was.
Oh yeah. It was an anti-Vietnam movie.
Right.
That's what he had in mind, and he was just hoping he could sneak it by the producers in the 20th Century Fox. So Mahoney, just to step back for a second.
What was its method for delivering that message? I mean, what was the anti part of it?
It was anti-authoritarianism, basically. It was
Right.
making fun of the real army and all that sort of thing. And
Yeah,
about
and you stop everything to save a congressman's son who's not really hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so much blood. I mean, it
So
was
much
just
blood.
maybe
Yeah.
that blood was so, it just numbed you. I mean, the way it starts, now again, I have mixed emotions just from the start, because it was the helicopters coming in with the injured person outside the helicopter coming into the MASH hospital. And I'm sure all of you have had someone, and I had someone very close to me that was shot in Vietnam and was helicoptered. And of course, that's the first thing I was thinking of, is that he was helicoptered. And then he came into St. Louis, as a matter of fact, at what's the Air Force Base in St. Louis?
McConnell, I think.
Scott,
What is it?
Scott, yeah, Scott.
No,
Uh,
yes, Scott. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. Scott Air Force Base. Yeah. So he came in there. So it starts out, to me, it was like really heavy, because, and then with all that blood, and then the repartee, you realize that how could anybody even exist in that kind of environment, 12 hours a day, just trying to stitch people back together, and people are dying, and all. You have to have a sense of humor, like Garry said, gallows humor. I've noticed that with cops too. Cops seem to have some really great senses of humor, and I guess you have to, in order to keep your own sanity. So it was interesting. I'm just see not only the arc of the characters in the movie, but my own arc from 1970 until now, as to how I reacted to it. So it's interesting pick for sure.
Mahoney, just to step back for a second, what about the two questions? Would you think it could be made today? And do you think?
I think number one, I don't think satire's dead. I don't think satire will ever die. I do believe it can be made today, but it would have to be very different than MASH from 54 years ago. And Whit brings up the point that this was made during a very divisive time in the country. We're probably more divided now than we were then, and so I think that because of that, there'd either be a higher percentage of people that would just automatically disregard this movie and wouldn't even entertain going to it, or they'd be even more ticked off and outraged about what they saw on the screen, because it wouldn't fit with their
Right.
worldview. So it could be made, but it would be, it wouldn't just be an updated MASH for 2024. They would have to have a different set of circumstances, none of which jump out at me right now. But there were a number of movies like this in that time period. The one that jumps out to my mind is there was a George C. Scott movie about being in a hospital that was pretty dark humor back in the day. It was also made in the early 70s, I think. And, then there were some other movies, like Blazing Saddles and The Producers and such. You could make this movie today, I think, but it would be different.
Completely
Very
different. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Jeff,
haven't heard
Gee,
from
what do you
Jeff
think?
Arthur.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
We haven't heard from Jeff Arthur.
So I was just
You know,
gonna
I,
ask.
I probably saw all of the TV show episodes over the years, but I had never seen this movie before.
Wow.
And I think the TV show was way better. but there were a couple things I didn't get. I didn't get the meaning behind the Last Supper scene. So maybe you guys know. I thought the Frank
Painless was-
Burns character was weak, but it was entertaining. And I agree with Mahoney. I think it could be made today, but it would have to be updated totally. The humor would have to be totally different. And I also don't think satire's dead. So
Yeah, I think that the whole John episode where he goes to be checked out and the surgeon comes over, or the doctor comes over and says, we're going to keep him for a couple of days, and they try to talk him out of it. That was in the TV series. I do remember seeing that. So they borrowed from the movie a couple.
I think that was also a bigger part of the book, if I remember correctly, as well.
Okay.
So, I don't know. So, Jeff, what about the Last Supper scene?
I just didn't understand. I mean, there must have been some significance to it, but if there was, I missed it.
I think they were just posing the Last Supper as the
Yeah.
scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Just
don't-
saying.
It was,
I don't think it's any
they
deeper
were-
than that.
Okay.
it was prep for the dentist's last supper.
Yeah. It was his Last Supper, and they were,
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah. So,
So Doctor,
They did
And-
take,
was the black capsule real?
Right.
I thought it might have been a blue pill
yeah, that,
instead of a black capsule, but
yeah.
what do I know?
They said it was a sleeping pill. Yeah, things
Oh, is that
were
what they said?
about it, supposedly, yeah, but
Yeah,
he didn't know that. The dentist didn't know that. He thought he was going to die. So
Yeah.
What did you think of the ending? It just came to an end suddenly. Is that pretty much how you read that?
Well, the speakers, started introducing the cast, and they just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
turned the speakers into the last character.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of a unique way of doing your final credits. But I mean, they were somewhat shocked too, though, when it first started. They would say, "You're going home," he goes, "What?" Like almost like they didn't want to go home. I think he was trying to relay that message that a lot of soldiers had. They were like, "Well, I can't believe I'm going home. I'm not ready to go home."
Well, I think that showed that there was humanity while they were putting up with all this inhumane stuff. They had feelings for each other. They survived, and there was a moment that they realized, well, I'll never, walk in these shoes again. And it showed some heart that they were a little reluctant to call it in.
Kind of like Charlie in Platoon when he
Mhm.
goes in.
I think, and again, I've never been in the military, but it would seem to me when you're in those kind of situations around people that, your life depends on them and they depend on you for living, and you have to get I would think you would have to get so much closer, because life is, I mean, you're not on the surface anymore. This is, real. You could be dying in the next moment. So yeah, I think I can see why anybody it seems like people that are in the military have that connection that they never lose. If they see somebody that's in the military, even if they don't know them, there's a connection there. Anybody that's in those kind of, I think, in those kind of situations become much closer to each other.
Well, if you ever play on a sports team, you
Yeah.
practice together, you train together, you work out together, And the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose a game together, but you still have this
Are
bond.
together.
Imagine
Yeah.
take that and recognize that the people around you may lose their lives or save your life because
Right.
they're on your team. You just take that sense of teamwork and amplify it up to the, you know, the life and death level.
Agree.
And it's got to create bonds that are irreplaceable.
Right. Right.
A lot of guys in Nam went back. I was always surprised by that. I read several of the Vietnam novels where people write about their experiences over there. And
Well, people in Afghanistan and the Middle East have gone back because they never felt a sense of purpose or a sense
Here.
of connection like they did there, as miserable as it was.
Yeah.
yeah, and some of it is you're in a fight and flight mode all the time. And then
Right.
they miss that. That's a withdrawal when they get back to the
Yeah. It's
States.
like an adrenaline junkies. Yeah.
Right. You don't, the rest of the world doesn't really fit right or something. You can't really
Right.
understand why people aren't a little more intense. But anyway, we got to make sure and let Bill go because he's got to go to
Yep,
his
at 8.
brother's birthday
Or so.
party.
Pretty much
Okay.
at 8. But I mean, it's 10-12, so that was a good movie, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good movie, Mike. Good.
Who's got the pick?
suggestion.
Yeah, that's true. Who hasn't a big son?
I forgot to mention last week of the movies I watched Gandhi again, just because there was so much exposure to him and the impact he's had there. I forgot to mention that was one of the movies I watched
I think
recently.
it's your pick, Gary.
Oh, me?
I think
I
Uh-oh.
think
so.
it would. I think it would be.
Okay.
Probably.
Gandhi.
I didn't think about I didn't think about that. That's a 3-hour plus movie, so I won't put you through that. But I'll have a movie for you
Call Terry.
by tomorrow.
Okay.
I wasn't
know-
prepared. I didn't think about it.
There, Gary, you were talking about how divided we are now. There is a movie out now. I'm going to try to see it tomorrow, but I haven't. It's only at the theaters. It's called Civil War. Have
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
heard about it?
Kirsten
Yeah.
Oh,
Dunst.
I'm going tomorrow night. I was going to mention that same thing. It could be a current day.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a
out-
satire though.
No, it's not a
No.
satire. I'm understanding it's pretty tough.
I
to
believe it's a
watch.
movie about journalism.
About what?
Journalism.
Oh, yeah, it is. It
about
is about
reporters.
journalism. There's 4 journalists, right? It's about 4 journalists, and they're at different places around the world. Yeah,
And you liked it?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen
Oh.
it. I'm gonna go tomorrow
Yeah, I'm going.
if I can. Yeah. So
Anybody else have any recommendations?
I do.
Okay.
On Netflix, I watched Freud's Last Session. And Sigmund Freud invites C.S. Lewis to his home to
Ooh.
interview him about love and family and God. And it's all before Freud dies from oral cancer. Very, very good. Anthony Hopkins and Matthew Good.
Freud's Last Session.
Yes,
Great.
That sounds great.
yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
it's very good. It's very good. Yeah.
I know not everybody spent time in Colombia, but thinking about this movie and people getting together and having sort of a community kind of reminded me of what happened in Colombia to all of us who were there. And it's not the same level of intensity, but I think we all kind of hung together for a while there. And I kind of missed that.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yep, we did.
Made me think.
Why
of
were you
Terry.
guys in Colombia?
For school. For
He's
school.
from Missouri.
Matson and Copeland, Whitaker, Sanders, and I, and were
We weren't on a
all
mission
together at
trip
the
up
MU,
to
and Barnhart was over
Medellin.
at KU.
And Thornhill, I mean, speaking of somebody
Yeah.
who's here before.
And Walsh came in pretty often.
Yes, he was.
Yep.
Jeff, if you thought we were all in Bogota together for a mission trip, it was
Oh,
That is what I was thinking.
or you think Columbia University.
Bringing
in New
drugs.
York.
Yeah,
And Bill was there a lot. It's like he was with us.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, all of those connecting experiences, high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My classmates over at KU coming down to
Yeah.
me. Columbia and going down to MU. It's all similar experiences, I guess.
Mhm. Well, have a good
I-
barbecue, Bill. Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
thank you.
I was gonna say, you know, if you want looking for another movie too, Mike was mentioning, I think he was mentioning The Hospital a little earlier. So I'll throw that out as a one you might want to watch.
Yeah, George C. Scott.
Oh.
I finished watching Fallout this season of it. It's good. It's pretty good science fiction, I guess. Interesting. It's
What's the
all-
name again, Bill? What's the name?
Fallout.
Fallout.
Oh, Fallout. Fallout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Based on a video game, and there's been a nuclear war and people live in these fallout shelters. Well, there are people that live above the ground and below the ground. It's pretty well cast. And the guy that directed it, he did Westworld.
Hmm. Okay.
His brother is like his brother won the Academy Award this year for director for Best Picture. Christopher Nolan.
Oh, Christopher
Oh, yeah.
Nolan. Yeah.
His brother has done a lot of stuff too. I think his name's Jonathan Nolan. But anyway, he's got this series, I guess it's on Hulu, called Fallout. And it's
No, it's on Prime. It's on
Prime.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And they've already been renewed for a second season. So
I believe it.
Amazon must have liked it. And they're not dribbling it out. You can watch over the first season, you can just watch straight through if you want to.
I didn't get the pick.
It's
He didn't make one.
coming tomorrow.
Okay.
He's gonna
It's coming in tomorrow.
send it out to us tomorrow. And Gary was saying that he'd like to go back and review Nashville, I think you said. But
No, I'm just saying I'd have to look at other Altman films to see if they follow a similar approach where,
The
because I don't remember
background.
Nashville necessarily having a true plot. It was just kind of a series of scenes. And the way they did it in MASH is they introduced a character, then another character, and then another character. And that became the movie, was just this vignettes of now meet, Sally Kellerman, now meet, and even, what's it, Hawkeye goes, whoa, the way you threw the football, I know who you are. It's
Yeah.
just a series of introductions all the way through.
Mhm. I mean, we've done a few Altman films, and most of them have been picked by Tall Mike. So
Yeah. I think we
Yeah.
did do Nashville, didn't we?
yeah.
We
Yeah.
did. I
Yeah.
picked
Yeah.
that one time.
And then what else
And,
did you pick by Altman?
Oh, he did that. Paul Newman, Joanne.
Did we do the last picture show too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that Altman?
No,
Yeah. Isn't it?
No,
I don't
that
think
that
so.
was the guy that did Paper Moon, the director of that.
We did one that
Married to Sharon Tate, right?
No, you're talking about
Thinking of
Mind is
Quentin
gone.
Tarantino and the Hollywood movie or whatever, where
what was that Hollywood?
Once Upon a Time in
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the last picture show was what's Sharon Tate's husband, wasn't it?
I
No,
don't
Polanski?
think so. No, no,
Roman
no.
Polanski? No? Okay.
I don't think so. But I'm not sure.
somebody that's got Mr. Google handy could look that up. But I think,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of his name. He had big round glasses. And he.
Yeah,
actually
last
directed-
picture show doesn't feel like a Roman Polanski movie.
Sidney Pollack, big
Maybe.
round glasses.
No, maybe it was Sidney Pollack. I don't know.
Yeah, might be Sydney.
Let's see, I'm looking here.
Altman movie that-
Bogdanovich. It was Peter Bogdanovich.
Peter
Ah,
Bogdanovich.
yeah,
there you
that's
go.
it. Peter Bogdanovich. Yeah.
Okay,
And
Sharon
Larry-
Tate's
Larry
first
Mc-
husband.
Larry McMurtry wrote it.
Right.
Yeah, he's good.
I've always wanted to do Altman's Crosscuts, which is a 3 hour and 20-minute movie, and it was one of his last. But it's just not available. You can buy it, but you cannot rent it anywhere.
Hmm.
Altman did get an Academy Award, an honorary Academy Award, when he was about 80. And he told everyone he was going to be around for a long time because he'd recently gotten a heart transplant. And he died a few weeks later from
Oh, jeez.
He died in 2006, and his last movie was A Prairie Home Companion.
Oh,
right.
yeah. Oh,
I forgot
yeah.
about that one, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good.
He did Kansas City.
Yeah, he did one called Kansas City. Anyway,
Really?
I
All right.
don't- I-
Mahoney, did you get my list of baseball games?
Yeah, I did. I saw it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I've got one, before we go, Under the Bridge. Anybody watch this one? This stars Lily Gladstone, who was in,
Yeah.
Oklahoma movie, and Riley Keough, who was Daisy in The Six. They're both in a crime thriller called Under the Bridge, and it's on Hulu.
Okay.
I've watched, you get 3 episodes and then they start dribbling. So I've watched those 3 and it looks like it's going to be pretty good.
okay.
All right.
Anybody else?
Cool.
Mattson, are you available for golf?
I'm playing tomorrow and we're going to the horse races in Hot Springs Thursday. So not till next week.
Okay.
All right,
Keep
everybody.
you on my speed dial.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Good
Bye,
pick.
y'all.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Good pick. Thanks,
Bye.
Mike.
Hey, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good, Bill.
Bye.
Good one, Mike.